All right, let's get right into it. We're taking a trip to Taipei's incredible National Palace Museum to really unpack the stories behind three of its most famous artifacts. And trust me, these are way more than just museum pieces. They're absolute legends.
Just take a look at this. I mean, it's a cabbage, but it's carved from one single piece of jadeite, and it's one of the most famous treasures in the entire world. But believe me, the story behind it is even cooler than how it looks. Now, to really get why this is such a big deal, you have to understand the scale of this museum. We're talking about a collection of almost 700,000 pieces of Chinese imperial art and artifacts. I mean, that is just a mind-blowing amount of history packed into one place. And that brings us to the big question, right? In a museum with literally hundreds of thousands of masterpieces, why do these three specific things, a cabbage, a chunk of what looks like meat, and a big bronze pot, draw massive crowds from all over the world? What is their secret?
So let's start with the vegetable. At first glance, it's this incredibly beautiful carving. But if you dig a little deeper, you find out it's actually this powerful symbol of purity, of virtue, and of hope for the future.
So here it is again, the jadeite cabbage. It's pretty small, super delicate, and just unbelievably lifelike. It seriously looks like someone just picked it from a garden 5 minutes ago. But nope, this is art at the absolute highest level. Now this is where the genius really kicks in. The artist didn't fight the stone. They worked with it. This whole thing was carved from a single piece of jadeite that was partly white and partly green. Instead of seeing that as a flaw, the carver brilliantly used the white part for the stalk and the green for the leaves. Even the natural cracks in the stone were worked into the design to look like the veins on the cabbage leaves. It's just perfect. But the real secret? It's hiding right there in plain sight. If you look really, really closely at the leaves, you'll spot two tiny insects, a katydid and a grasshopper. And in traditional Chinese culture, these little guys were huge symbols of fertility. So this cabbage isn't just a cabbage, it's a blessing, a deeply felt wish for a big, thriving family. And this is where you see just how deep the layers of meaning go. It wasn't just about having kids. The cabbage itself was a symbol of a humble, pure life for scholars. Even Emperor Shanlong himself wrote about how the cabbage's simple, clean nature represented the kind of honesty he wanted for his own descendants. It's a whole lesson in virtue, disguised as a common vegetable. Okay, let's move on to our next treasure, and I guarantee this one is gonna make you hungry. We're shifting from a symbol of high virtue to a celebration of life's simpler and much more delicious pleasures. Yep, you are seeing that correctly. That is a rock that looks exactly like a perfectly cooked, mouth-watering piece of dung po pork, a super famous Chinese dish. You can practically see the rich, savory sauce glistening on top. It is so unbelievably realistic, it's hard to accept that it's actually a stone. So how in the world did they pull this off? Well, just like the cabbage, this is another masterpiece of working with what nature gives you. The stone itself, a type of jasper, already had these amazing natural layers that looked just like alternating fat and lean meat. So the artist took that, skillfully shaped it, and then dyed the very top layer to create that perfect, crispy skin. It's this incredible team-up between nature's randomness and human creativity. The stone is famously linked to the Song Dynasty poet, Su Dongpo. He wasn't just a famous writer, he's the guy who actually invented the dish this stone looks like. And his advice on cooking, to let the pork cook slowly until it's just right, is also this beautiful metaphor for patience and appreciating the process, whether you're making a meal or creating a piece of art. So in the end, this stone is so much more than just a carving of food. It represents this real love for life, a great sense of humor, and this idea that you can find profound beauty in the most ordinary things around you. It's a tribute to the pure joy of a good meal. All right, from the delicious to the divine, we're now jumping back 3,000 years for our final treasure. And this one, well, it's not small, it's not playful. It is massive, it is ancient, and it literally carries the weight of an entire dynasty inside it. This is the Mao Gong Ding. It's a bronze cauldron from way back in the Western Zhou dynasty. And no, it wasn't used for cooking stew. This was a sacred vessel used in the most important ceremonies to honor ancestors and, communicate with the heavens. It was a foundational object, the thing that connected the rulers on earth to the powers above. To put this into perspective, we are talking about an object that's about 3,000 years old. It's a direct physical link to one of China's earliest dynasties. This isn't just an artifact, it's a historical document cast in metal, embodying the political and spiritual world of its time.
So what's its big secret? Well, the real treasure here isn't the bronze itself. It's what's hidden on the inside. Inscribed along the inner wall are 500 Chinese characters.
This is the longest inscription ever found on a bronze piece from this entire period. And it's not just some dedication. It's the entire text of a speech from King Xuan to his minister. It lays out the principles of how to be a good ruler, the importance of virtue, and the whole concept of the mandate of heaven. This core idea that a ruler's right to rule comes from the heavens and totally depends on their good conduct. This pot basically contains the political soul of a dynasty.
So, after all that, we can finally answer our question. Why this specific cabbage, this piece of meat, and this ancient pot? Out of 700,000 other amazing things, why are these three the ones that everyone has to see?
And the answer, really, is that each one tells a massive human story in a way that anyone can understand. The jadeite cabbage takes a simple vegetable and turns it into a universal hope for family and a good life. The meat-shaped stone turns a rock into a celebration of everyday joy and creativity. And the Maogongding uses a ceremonial pot to record the foundations of history, law, and morality. They connect the biggest ideas we have to the simplest things we know.
And that kind of leaves us with one final thought. What these treasures really teach us is that profound meaning is everywhere, often hidden in the most ordinary objects we see every day. A simple meal, a plant in the garden, you name it. So the real question is, what objects in your life hold a much bigger story just waiting to be told?